By the time you finish this briefing, the flow of the Blue Nile into Cairo will have dropped another 3%. Since the final filling of the GERD began in May 2026, water is no longer a resource. It is a tactical weapon. Egypt has 100 million people. The Nile provides 97% of its fresh water. There is no alternative source. There is no backup plan. The river is Egypt. And in May 2026, Ethiopia turned the valve. This is not a resource dispute. This is an existential confrontation between two nations, one controlling the source, one controlling nothing but its own thirst. The 21st century's first total water war has begun. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD, is Africa's largest hydroelectric project, 6,450 megawatts of generating capacity, a reservoir holding 74 billion cubic meters of water, built on the Blue Nile, which contributes 86% of the Nile's total flow. Ethiopia's position is legally coherent. The Nile Waters Treaty of 1959 was signed between Egypt and Sudan. Ethiopia was not a party. Ethiopia built its dam on its own territory with its own river. Under international law, Ethiopia's case is not weak. Egypt's position is equally coherent. Its civilization has depended on the Nile for 7,000 years. The river is not an economic asset. It is the biological precondition for the existence of Egyptian society. Reducing its flow is not a policy dispute. It is an act of war. In June 2026, Egyptian armored units repositioned toward the Sudanese border. Ethiopia placed its air force on elevated readiness. Sudan, caught geographically between both, declared neutrality and quietly began rationing water in Khartoum. The Nile deadlock has no clean diplomatic resolution. Ethiopia needs the dam's electricity generation for its industrialization. Egypt needs the water flow for its survival. Both needs are genuine. Both are non-negotiable. That combination is what makes this the most dangerous water conflict on Earth. The Nile conflict is the most visible water war. It is not the largest. The Tibetan Plateau, the third pole, holds more freshwater ice than anywhere outside the Arctic and Antarctic. And China controls it entirely. 10 major Asian river systems originate on the Tibetan Plateau. The Brahmaputra, the Mekong, the Yangtze, the Yellow River, the Salween, the Irrawaddy. These rivers supply fresh water to approximately 1.4 billion people downstream. All of them originate in Chinese-controlled territory. China has built or is building over 11 major dams on the upper Mekong alone. Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia have documented significant reductions in downstream water flow since construction began. The data is not disputed. The diplomatic response has been limited. India's relationship with the Brahmaputra is the most strategically sensitive. The river enters India from China through a dramatic gorge in Arunachal Pradesh, territory both nations claim. China has announced plans for a dam on this section that would be the largest hydroelectric project in human history. In the Fergana Valley in June 2026, border clashes between Kyrgyz and Uzbek forces left dozens dead. The trigger was not ideology. It was not ethnicity. It was an irrigation canal diversion. Water pulled the trigger. The Sir Darya and Amu Darya are the two great rivers of Central Asia. Both originate in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Both flow through Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan toward the Aral Sea, or what remains of it. The upstream nations, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, need water flow in summer for irrigation. The downstream nations, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, need water year-round for agriculture and industry. In a water-scarce year, those needs are mathematically incompatible. The Soviet Union managed this system through centralized allocation. Upstream nations received energy subsidies in exchange for managing water releases downstream. That system ended in 1991. Nothing replaced it. 35 years of ad hoc agreements have produced the 2026 Fergana crisis. Water scarcity is not only a humanitarian crisis, it is a technology crisis. Semiconductor manufacturing requires water in quantities and purity levels that most people find genuinely surprising. TSMC's flagship fabs consume approximately 150,000 tons of ultra-pure water per day. Taiwan's water supply has been under increasing stress from changed precipitation patterns. In 2021, Taiwan's worst drought in 56 years forced TSMC to truck in water. That was a warning, not a solution. Intel's facilities in Arizona, a desert state, consume comparable volumes. The American Southwest is experiencing its most severe multi-decade drought in over 1,000 years. The semiconductor industry is competing for water with 40 million people who also need it to survive. The Silicon Shield, which we covered in our microchip war episode, assumes TSMC keeps producing. TSMC's production assumes Taiwan has water. Taiwan's water supply is increasingly uncertain. The vulnerability chain from geopolitics to water to chips to global economy is real and direct. The theoretical solution to water scarcity is desalination, removing salt from seawater to produce fresh water. Israel has made it work at scale. Saudi Arabia has made it work at enormous scale. Both demonstrate that desalination is technically viable. Neither demonstrates that it is strategically safe. Saudi Arabia produces approximately 20% of the world's desalinated water. Its desalination plants supply the majority of drinking water for its major cities. Those plants run on natural gas. They are located on coastlines. They are large, fixed, and visible. In a conflict, they are targets. Israel's desalination success story has a similar structural vulnerability. 5 major plants supply roughly 80% of Israel's domestic water. Destroy 2 of them, and Israel's domestic water supply collapses within weeks. Water infrastructure is now as strategically valuable and as militarily targeted as oil infrastructure. Desalination also consumes enormous energy. Saudi Arabia's plants consume more energy than many entire nations. In a world trying to reduce carbon emissions while managing water scarcity, desalination represents a paradox. The solution to one crisis accelerates another. In the 20th century, the world's most dangerous conflicts revolved around what was under the ground: oil, gas, minerals. In the 21st century, the most dangerous conflicts are forming around what flows on it: water. The Nile deadlock, the Mekong dams, the Fergana clashes, the semiconductor water crisis. These are not separate stories. They are chapters in a single narrative about a world that built its civilization on the assumption that water would always be available. That assumption is no longer valid. Hydropolitics, the geopolitics of water, is now a primary lens through which to understand 21st century conflict. The nations that control headwaters control the existence of nations downstream. That power is absolute in a way that oil leverage never quite was. You can find alternative energy. You cannot find alternative water. The diplomatic frameworks for managing international water disputes are inadequate. The UN Watercourses Convention has been signed by fewer than half the world's nations. The countries most involved in active water disputes, China, Ethiopia, Kyrgyzstan, are not bound by any enforceable international water law. The question that no government wants to answer publicly is already being asked privately. If a nuclear-armed nation faces genuine water existential crisis, if its cities begin to go dry, does the nuclear threshold move? Does water desperation change the calculus of extreme options? The historical answer provides no reassurance. As the taps run dry in the world's megacities, Cairo, Delhi, Karachi, Tehran, Will we see the first nuclear-armed conflict triggered not by ideology, not by territory, but by a river? Drop your assessment in the comments. Subscribe to GeoMind Studio, because the next water crisis will not announce itself in advance.